right, we are supposedly live,
All right.
but you never know because YouTube is awful about that kind of thing. But supposedly
Among
we are
many other
live,
things.
and I just got an email notification that we are live. Okay,
Sounds good.
dang, worse than you. You're quick on the draw.
Shit,
Uh,
man. Really.
hello. Yes, all of us are live here. It's just been a minute. But yes, welcome to Filthy Casuals. I am your host Clayton. I'm joined as always by Caesar.
Yes, we're back from the dead.
Yeah.
So
Af
worse than you. So worse than you. Have you just been feverishly waiting for us to come back every week? That every weekend. You're very quick to respond.
yeah. The long absence is due to, well, three things. Number one, it was the holidays, and honestly, I don't like making content on the holidays. It feels tacky, I guess. I'm a family man, and I like spending time with my family during the holidays. The second thing is, if you watch the update video I posted a couple of weeks ago, I was exposed to the coof. So that put me down for a couple of weeks while I was quarantining and basically staying away from all human contact. And then third and finally, the events of the inauguration. I wanted to see where I wanted to hold off and see where YouTube would land. They could have either like basically purged everyone who was a mild, even expressed mild support for or former President Trump, or they could be as it is now, where we're just waiting for them to pull the trigger. So yeah, that's really why I haven't been cranking out the content each week. Not that there hasn't been stuff to talk about, just really wanted to see where the dice would land on this one. That being said, we do now have a BitChute, which will be linked in the description of this video, as well as a Rumble account. So once this video is uploaded fully to YouTube, I'll download it and put it on both of those. So go check us out on there. The BitChute actually has an archive of all old academic alehouses, so you might find something interesting in the before times. That being said, Caesar, do you have anything to talk about?
Not at the moment.
All right. So we might as well get into our main subject for the night then, and that being an article you sent me about the Star Wars: The High Republic.
Yep.
Now I'm personally waiting for my next payday so I can buy one of the comics so we can, or at least buy a digital copy of one of the comics so we can go through it. But
Oh, dude, you're spending money on that.
I might find a way to pirate it. Who knows? Oh wait, no,
Yeah. I mean,
no, that would be wrong of me. We don't pirate things.
oh no, we would never do that.
We
No.
would never steal money from Disney. That would be cruel and wrong of us.
Yeah.
All right, but it was an article you sent me about, oh, titled "Star Wars: The High Republic Changes What We Know About Jedi Sex."
Oh boy.
Let that sink in. So basically, from what I know, which is very limited, the Jedi in before this abomination came to the Old Republic were, for the most part, celibate. A good point, worse than you. Why do we need to know about this? But from what, like, it's not something that I think was addressed very often, but It did come up in the case of at least one Jedi. Um, but basically, for the most part, these guys were celibate. They didn't have sex. Like, let's be real. Obi-Wan would have if it wasn't forbidden or taboo, he probably would have banged Satine. Like that's that's the real truth right there. But the hmm, the only other exception I can think of was Kiadi Mundi. And the reason was because his species was basically on the verge of extinction, so they needed every viable male they could.
Yeah. Also, Revan also had a or Revan had a lover too, but was that in secrecy? I'm not too familiar with Kotor.
Revan and Bastila, they hook up, and technically they're still part of the Jedi Order, but not really. They both get exiled, I believe. In the book, they're both exiled. Regardless, let's see what this new canon has to say about the Jedi sex. In Claudia Gray's new Star Wars, the High Republic novel, Into the Dark. Okay, so just a thing, and this is a really a nitpick on my part. If this is the title of the book, it should be marked out in bold, italicized, something to indicate the title of the book. The subject of the Jedi's views on intimacy is given intriguing new context. The newest Star Wars High Republic. That's fair, but the reason she barely does anything in the Old Republic is because you're the main character. I don't know anything about Claudia Gray. Hey, do you know who she is worse than you? Anyway, uh, did
All I know about her is that she has written at least like one other Star Wars book in the past.
hmm,
It was one on it was one about Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon.
hmm.
I don't know if the book's good or not. I mean, it's part of the Disney canon, so I'm a bit skeptical.
Excuse me. The newest Star Wars High Republic novel, Claudia Gray's Into the Dark, sheds new light on the Jedi in regards to sex, namely that they needn't be completely celibate. While discussing the Jedi and the Force with Vessel, co-pilot Alfie Hol- co-pilot Alfie Hollow, Reith Silas, the Padawan of Jorah Mali, I don't know who any of these people are, explains how the Jedi give up individual attachments in order to focus entirely on greater concerns. So that means no sex, Alfie replies. From there, Reith muses whether he should go into his master's explanation about the difference between celibacy of the body and true purity of the heart, but opts not to. The discussion continues later on in the chapter, this time with Vessel pilot Loix Gyasi being involved as the characters go back and forth about the difference between love and sex. How is this? So this whole thing, like, why? Okay, so let's think about this. Why would this be a conversation two characters have?
I don't know. It's a weird thing to have in Star Wars.
It's a
Like so I mean, if this quote is accurate, they straight up just say the word sex in the book.
yeah, and then uh, why why is that immediately where he goes? Like I don't understand why what. Oh, so the author is just like a like yeah. I see. So she's just like a porn author, basically. Just soft core. Everything must relate to sex, I guess. Probably
I
because you
guess
can't.
that yeah, I guess this is how you how you rope in the I guess the female demographic.
Hmm. But even uh, why would this be immediately where someone goes? Like, and why would you explain the Jedi Order as giving up individual attachments in order to focus entirely on greater concerns? That's such a weird way to put focus to explain what the Jedi believe and why what the Jedi believe and why they believe it. Like you could explain the Jedi are embodiments of the Force. First, we follow its will. Well, we forego our wants for the wants of the Force.
You know, also I I don't know. Perhaps in the books the Jedi Order doesn't actually normalize this kind of shit. Because I mean, if they did, then you'd have to be putting a shit ton of faith in your Jedi to not have any attachment towards any people they put their dicks inside.
Exactly. Like there's there's no reason for this conversation to exist within a Star Wars novel, but more more to the point, like there's no reason for any of the characters to do this. I assume they're doing something important. They're in a book, which means the story must be progressing somehow. And yes, a story can take a moment to breathe, but usually in Star Wars, when a story takes a moment to breathe, when story takes moments to breathe, you don't sit back and discuss like, oh, oh sex. But there's also the fact of like this kid maybe is what? How old? The Padawan? How old are these characters? Are they 5? What is it like? It's such a baffling scene. Foregoing personal attachments, including those to other beings, is a facet of the Jedi Order that was explored heavily in the prequel trilogy with Anakin Skywalker. By being brought into the Order at an older age than most, he harbored a strong attachment to his mother Shmi, Shmi, which ultimately fueled his rage against the Tusken Raiders when she was killed in the Attack of the Clones. Moreover, it was his attachment to Padme Amidala and his determination to save her from a deadly premonition that led him to the dark side, albeit with some heavy manipulation by Sheev Palpatine. I mean, you could interpret it that way. I mean, the first part's right, but I would argue that his inability to let go of his emotions of at any point, seriously, that 8 times. Why? That's unnecessary. That's so unnecessary, and it's got to break up the book a lot to have just, even if it's just a throwaway line on a scene, like you're breaking the scene that way. 8 times. Christ.
Yeah, I think that, or I watched Midnight's Edge did a stream about this a couple days ago. If I remember correctly, they kind of mentioned how it really feels like Star Wars is just being turned into a young adult novel series.
Yeah, instead of, Darth Bane, where you get a deep philosophical examination of the dark side, and why and how it came to be. He ruled by two Sith, and how you root for the bad guy, basically.
Oh, you rooted for the bad guys. Okay.
I root for, I root for Darth Bane, but anyway, like this doesn't justify. This paragraph does not justify this scene. That's not how that works. Like Anakin falls to the dark side more so because he can't let anything go. Like he can't let his mother go. Oh, even after his actions against the Tusken Raiders, he can't let that go. He holds on to everything because because of his upbringing. Basically, he was raised a slave, then he was raised a monk, then he was turned into a monk. Anything and everything he's like he's going to hold on to desperately. That's just his psychology. That's who he is as a person. That includes emotions because those are things he can control. And I would argue that he's not someone, he can't let things go. Yes, exactly. This isn't the first time Gray has explored Jedi and sex. In her 2019 novel Master and Apprentice, where we we're introduced to Rael Averroes, another one of former Jedi Master Dooku's proteges, who was trained by the eventual Sith Lord before Qui-Gon Jinn. In that book, it's made clear that Rael has sex but doesn't form personal attachments, thus skirting the strict Jedi code. But
Well, hold on a sec. Hold on.
uh, like, why? Why do we care that he has sex? There's no reason for him to have sex. It just makes it just makes him an unnecessarily outlier. Like uh, the closest thing to a bad boy in the Jedi Order had was Quinlan Voss, and he was weird. Regardless, that's the end of the article, and I'm just sitting, and I sit here like, for what purpose? This doesn't need to exist. This doesn't need to happen in the book. It doesn't need to happen. It doesn't need to be justified by anyone. It's just such a weird.
Yeah. So did the article say anything like that these Jedi are actually like playing by the rules.
I don't think so. It doesn't look like it.
You could, I guess, you can have a little leg room if like these Jedi kind of cheating the code behind the Order's back.
I guess. I don't know. I don't see why they would have that. Oh, anyway. Alright. Next, moving on, we do have a video to respond to.
Oh boy, time for the
This
main
one's
course.
30 minutes long, so we're going to be here a while.
Worse than you, if you got something hard to drink, I suggest grabbing it now. It's going to be bad.
Alright. Alright, you and they'll watch together?
Yep.
Okay. So,
Okay. Yes.
we have um Neryl, a video by Neryl, a guide to the Last Jedi for the Star Wars fan base.
And to those of you who might not be familiar with Neural, I want you to think back. The year is 2018, and for several weeks you constantly get this one video recommended to you, and the thumbnail is the moon from Majora's Mask with the Jedi rocks alien photoshopped onto it. That this is that same person. I mentioned that because that's what happened to me when I finally clicked on the video. Like everybody in the comment section was pretty much saying the same shit. There's like, okay, YouTube, I'll finally watch the video. Stop recommending it.
Anyway, so let's begin. You can already tell it's pretentious, can't you?
Yes.
Welcome to Too Late Who Gives a Shit, the show in which I talk about something that's already been thoroughly reviewed, debated, that every possible opinion has been expressed over, and that no one wants to hear anything about ever again. Making this video a really dumb fucking idea.
Let your fanbase die. Kill it, if you have to.
But I think it's fair for me to talk about the film when every corner of the internet is still oozing hatred for it. Watch a video of kittens playing, and someone is shitting on The Last Jedi beneath it.
I realized, there's a lot of. I realize he's being hyperbolic, but, but beyond Mauler and, like, beyond Mauler, I never saw that many videos and that many comments just throwing hatred at The Last Jedi.
Oh, there's a sizable amount of people.
I mean, I know there's a sizable amount of people. Well, just this seems very hyperbolic. It's just he's being hyperbolic, and I don't really understand why. I don't understand why because it's not helping his argument at all. Well, I would argue that he's creating a straw man, and so
Oh,
he can
that
tear
he
it
does
down
that in his
later.
video. Oh, he very much beats up a straw man.
The prequels had a notoriously bad reception, but this almost seems worse.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's not true. People like the prequels. It wasn't for
Well, a lot of people hate it too.
it wasn't until years later that the majority opinion and basically pulled the prequels down into infamy. I still like the prequels, warts and all.
Or at least more confusing, because this time critics mostly loved the movie.
Yeah, that makes sense. They definitely critics definitely can't be bought or anything like that.
Or just be hipsters that who have very pretentious tastes.
or be total total devotees of the progressive agenda. There are many reasons why reviewers can't be trusted. If honestly, if Ryan Johnson really wanted the honest opinion about his movie, he shouldn't he should have told Disney to leave Rotten Tomatoes alone and not have, his and not have them change their entire rating system just to make his movie look mildly better.
Um, Wait, was that for Last Jedi? It
Yeah.
sounds more like Captain Marvel.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Okay, are we back? Hello? Rating system
And now we're off.
just to
And now
make
we're
his
back.
movie look mildly better.
Um,
Okay, hello. Good.
so yeah,
All right.
so I guess speaking of prequels, a while back I rewatched Phantom Menace for the first time in almost like 15 years. It was okay. It's there's plenty to criticize about it, but it's also a very overhated movie.
Hmm. The major thing I see about the prequels, about the Phantom Menace, though, is that it's boring, and I'm just like, y'all don't find world building interesting? But
And
that's the
then and
thing.
then
In the prequels, we got world building. Now
and
that
this
we now that we've entered the new trilogy, we have no world building. Now they get to see
yeah,
what it's like.
or at least very very bare bone world building,
Yeah.
nowhere near on the same scale as the previous two trilogies.
Mhm. Anyway, moving on.
With the final chapter of the story looming, I wanted to entangle myself in this clusterfuck of a thing by
Okay. Can you lower the volume on your system? I can
Oh,
hear the echo.
oh shit. Okay.
Sorry about that.
offering a breakdown of why I think the film is good. But first,
All right, you're good.
by watching this video, you certify that you are a mature adult capable of considering opinions contradictory to your own without taking severe offense and organizing harassment campaigns and other retaliatory actions. This video is merely one fan's opinion presented for entertainment purposes. It is intended for individuals with a sense of humor. If you do not have one, then you are encouraged to watch something else. Now,
Yeah, it's intended for humor, but we're also going to completely vilify and demonize you at the same time.
Yeah, people that do this, people that have these disclaimers in front of their videos like this, either have nothing to say or are going to attack you and want to scream out, "Why are you hitting me?" It's just a bit, and want to just say, "Well, it was just a joke." Friend, you don't get to use "it was just a joke." Or it's my opinion, it's subjective. You're going to argue that The Last Jedi is a decent film. It's not. Also, just because I'm a mature adult and can engage with those concepts, that doesn't mean I like being vilified. Furthermore, if you have to tell your audience that uh, if you're watching this and you're pissed off, you're not a mature person, you're literally exchanging playground insults, which proves very much that you aren't very mature. You're basically saying, "I know you are, but what am I?"
with that out of the way, we can talk about how Star Wars fans are the very worst people. Just the dumbest. Oh, shut up. You stay. Fuck you. All that fans kept saying after the prequels was how much they wanted movies like the originals again. I'm not sure they understood what that meant. Because those
Yeah, they wanted that feel. They wanted something like the originals that wasn't saturated in CGI, that wasn't And, I don't know, in their opinion, boring. I've never understood this argument. Like, the original trilogy is great, but why would you want something just like it? I don't get it. When I went into The Force Awakens, I was expecting to see a new Star Wars movie. I wasn't expecting to see A New Hope redone as a woman. And when I walked into The Last Jedi, I was expecting to see a continuation of the plot lines all established in The Force Awakens.
That instead of
Instead, I
having,
got slapped across the face.
yep, all those plot lines got trampled on.
Films were made under completely different circumstances, when Star Wars was silly.
Didn't think it was going to be any good. At least I didn't.
Leia's your sister. I said, oh, come on.
Her hair and weird buns on the side.
I said, this is the goofiest thing I've ever read. You got to read this. I passed it all around because nobody cared.
You know, we have large dogs flying spaceships. You know, you describe it and people will say, oh dear.
The Wookiee has no pants.
Lucas originally wanted to do Flash Gordon and couldn't get the rights to it, so he cobbled together ideas from westerns and samurai films to make his own space adventure.
Okay. So what? There's not, like, this is all irrelevant. This is all irrelevant.
I mean, yeah, he uses, if I remember, he uses a lot of whataboutism throughout the video.
This is all irrelevant. What are you making? What argument are you making? Are you making an argument that The Last Jedi is something new, then thus the fandom doesn't like it? Or are you making the argument that we can't ever have the original trilogy again because it was made in a different time anymore, when Star Wars was silly, something like that? No, this is all irrelevant.
What he made me think of is the Japanese sword master.
It was so unoriginal that it doubled back on itself and became original again. No one knew what Star Wars was when it released. Audiences had never seen a movie like it. They had to be shown what it was by Lucas and the subsequent filmmakers. But it turned out to be a story they already knew. Lucas heavily based the plot on classic mythology, especially Joseph Campbell's writings on the hero's journey. Star Wars isn't science fiction. It's an adventure that's thousands of years old and universal to every culture.
I attribute most of the success to this.
Okay. So, Star Wars is the hero's journey in space. Congratulations. You pointed out something fairly obvious to anyone, to any first-year lit student.
The psychological underpinnings, which have been around for thousands of years, and the people still react the same way.
Lucas took that mythology and told it on the biggest scale it had ever been told on before, which is the ultimate achievement of Star Wars. A generation was forever changed by these movies. To the people that grew up with Star Wars, it's not just a movie they like, it is their childhood. Star Wars is no longer silly, it's sacred. And this is where the fun begins, because now everyone in the theater thinks they know what Star Wars is better than the filmmaker, and who
Yeah. I mean, I suppose it would depend on the filmmaker. Now, if that filmmaker is George fucking Lucas, man, that man knows Star Wars because it's his baby. Now, if you bring in, I don't know, some man who was created in a bubble, sat him down in the film studio and said, make a Star Wars movie, he's gonna be like, what the fuck was that? And I'm gonna say, well, I know more than you. This is utterly pointless. And also, can you provide any evidence for this? That anyone in the theater thinks this way? Fans naturally have wants and desires out of the products they consume. What on earth makes you think that Star Wars is unique in that aspect? Excuse me. Caesar, you still there?
Yeah, yeah. I'm here.
Like, I don't understand what this man is acting like. Why he's acting like, oh, the Star Wars fans think they know better Star Wars better than
I,
George
I, thi-
Lucas
I,
and
well,
Ryan
I think he's
Johnson
trying
and
to.
Disney.
I think he's trying to frame a straw man that the Star Wars fans are pretty much gatekeeping the franchise from everybody else. They know Star Wars is sacred. Star Wars is sacred to them, so Star Wars has to appeal to them and not anybody else. I think that's what he's trying. I think that's the argument he's trying to make.
Or see, gatekeeping your fandom isn't a bad thing. It can be, but it isn't
Yeah,
necessarily.
yeah. I used not too long ago. I used to be strongly opposed to gatekeeping, but with all the shit that keeps happening with people who are in charge of franchises, I begin to I begin to realize that yeah, it actually isn't that bad of a thing after all.
If we keep doing these streams, I better start getting checks from all these people. The ads that show up during the stream. Anyway,
Who could tell them they're wrong? These directors are just fans like anyone else.
Ryan Johnson admitted more than once he wasn't a fan of Star Wars.
Has he?
I'm fairly certain.
I've heard. I remember one interview where he said he was a fan of Star Wars. But I mean, regardless, just because he's a fan doesn't necessarily mean that he won't try to take it in his own direction at the expense of what other people have done before him.
Exactly. And J.J. Abrams is a hack. I don't care that Abrams is a fan. J.J. Abrams is a hack writer.
I do not disagree.
Ryan watched Lost while he was when during in the middle of COVID during last summer with
He
COVID and
watched the
everything,
entire thing.
because we were basically locked in the house. He watched the entirety of Lost. He was like, "Show's awful."
I mean, what's the show even about? It's like guys, a bunch of people crash land on an
Don't
island, and
th-
then they
we don't
they
have
leave the
time
island.
to
And
we don't have the time even to go into Lost. We're 2 minutes into a 30-minute video.
All right, let's go.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone was impacted by the movies differently, and so everyone has their line in the sand. Their vision for what the characters should be, and any new story is inevitably going to alienate one part of the fanbase or the other. Especially since the fan image of the originals has gotten so disordered that The Last Jedi ended up being heavily criticized for doing the very things those movies did.
Like what? What compare? You can only make compare. Okay, I
Hold on.
guarantee you, Let me. He's about to basically compare, or The Last Jedi to The Empire Strikes Back, and how Snoke and the Emperor were the same. They didn't have backstory or anything like that. They didn't have of things like that. But all of these comparisons are purely surface level. There's They're not gotchas. They're thin paper mache excuses for the crap movie Ryan Johnson made.
In fact, I would take it a step further and say that if The Empire Strikes Back had somehow only been released today to this fan base, they would probably tear it apart.
Oh, here it comes. Here it comes.
How? Why? The Empire Strikes Back, even today, is lauded as one of the best Star Wars movies.
Well, he's going to make the argument that if The Empire Strikes Back was released today, this is the kind of reaction that we would have towards it. All
You
the new
have no
things that
evidence for that. People didn't go into The Force Awakens or The Last Jedi or hell, even the prequels ready to tear it apart. That's not what happened. Like, this is what people who defend The Last Jedi have to do. They have to retroactively instill malice. We went into the theater wanting to hate Star Wars. That's what happened because we didn't get what we wanted out of it. We don't like things that are happening in Star Wars, therefore toxic fans, misogynist, racist, blah blah blah. If The Empire Strikes Back were released today, it were released at the same within the same time frame of the Last Jedi, it would be lauded as a great movie. Why? Because it's a good movie. And this is what I was saying earlier. His comparisons between The Last Jedi and The Empire Strikes Back are surface level. Well, there's no looking deeper. There's no examination of the writing quality between the two movies, of the plot of the two movies, of the characters within the two movies. There's nothing of that. It is these two movies are at the same point in the fandom, have vaguely similar plot line, have vaguely similar thematic plot, have vaguely similar plot treadings. Therefore, or The Empire Strikes Back would have been ripped apart.
Sexual aberrations were never established in the prior canon. You can't just choking him through the TV. Oh, he's Skype choking him through the TV. Okay. Oh, hello. Yeah, pressurized space suit. Walk out in it's negative 100 degrees on an asteroid. Is there a cozy atmosphere in this space rock? You can only survive in space for 10 seconds. I googled it. What is a creature like this even eating? How does this many spaceships flying out to the remote asteroid field?
I am your father.
Red ruined my childhood. What a massive They ruined it. They ruined Luke's character and Vader's character.
Let's go back and take this apart piece by piece.
I don't think we need to. These are all straw men and criticisms that need not apply. Like, they're nitpicks of the movie. And they're nitpicks of the movie because he can't actually he can't actually come up with genuine criticism of The Empire Strikes Back.
Well, I guess I still have a few things. I still have a few things to say anyway. So the first movie did very much establish that deceased Jedi can still contact like living people. First movie established that, so it's only natural that for the next movie to actually see the ghost of Obi-Wan. And as for the worm, I mean, you could easily establish you had a bunch of bats flying around in there, so it's kind of safe to assume that the worm kind of has its own atmosphere on the inside.
If the asteroid's big enough, it would have an atmosphere.
Yeah, the asteroid itself could have the atmosphere, not even. And yeah, Darth Vader, and technically, yeah, Darth Vader being Luke's father is a retcon, but it's a good retcon.
Yeah, it's a very good retcon. Like, it's not a bad thing. Like, that's the point. That's the thing. Like, if this had been revealed without context, it would have been called for what it was, a retcon. But it would have been examined within the context of the greater film and the film trilogy as a whole, it makes Luke's character arc so much better. it makes his journey in the next movie so much more impactful because now in order to win, he has to fight his own father. Like he might have to fight and kill his own father. Like that's a big thing. I think this would have been like, I think just like it was when The Empire Strikes Back was released, this would have been lauded as a great retcon, similar to how Thor in Thor Ragnarok is retconned as a character, or to be sort of happy-go-lucky and fun. Like sort of a devil may care kind of thing. With the retcon, like, that's a good retcon because it means Thor works very well and has better chemistry with the rest of the Avengers cast. Until Fat Thor. And
yeah, we don't need to talk about Fat Thor.
I'll be honest, I liked Fat Thor when Endgame came out. The more I marinate on Fat Thor, I realize he's funny. He's good for a couple of funny gags, but I really wish he didn't keep the fat for the whole movie.
Yeah, what they could have done was have it so Thor actually goes back in time, and then he goes back in time to train. So then when he returns to the present, he's back to how he used to look.
Yeah.
Like once Thor's finally back on his ready to save everybody.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, let's keep going. Unless you have more to say.
Oh god, worse than you. I call Fat Thor Chris Chan Thor. Not entirely wrong.
Story. Fuck you, Irvin Kirchner.
Still with me?
No. I was never with you. I'm only against you.
Feel your anger.
What anger? I have only apathy.
If you're not convinced, here are some examples, beginning with... The Force began as a vague metaphor for religion and kept changing form right up until the cameras began rolling. If you list every ability seen in A New Hope, they don't exactly make the most sense together. The Empire Strikes Back expanded those abilities, with Luke outright using telekinesis, gaining superhuman agility, and seeing through time. By the end of Return of the Jedi, the Emperor is shooting lightning out of his hands. It's fair to say that this was being made up as they went along.
Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. The Force actually gets, a lot of new ability of, the Force is very, very malleable in what it can and cannot do. There are a few hard and fast rules, namely, not everyone can use the Force. It is select to unique to a set number of individuals. And number two, only the dark side and the light side have unique esoteric powers. For example, the dark side can't heal. It's not inherently... It doesn't heal. It has no healing abilities. The light can.
Yeah, so there's nothing wrong with trying to establish new Force powers, but you got to make sure it doesn't break everything that's come before it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like how Rise of Skywalker introduced being able to teleport objects.
Yeah,
across space. And
yeah.
it makes, if Rey and Kylo could do it, kind of makes you wonder why the fuck nobody else ever did that. None of the Jedi Masters in the prequels ever tried doing that.
And that doesn't diminish the Force in any way. It was an incredibly flexible plot device, something to move the story and characters along that could take whatever form the writers needed. This is a good illustration of how the Force was used. It doesn't matter that Luke can jump 20 feet in the air. That ability is never important to the story. But knowing how literally fans take things, I assume there's a 20-page Wikipedia article about Jedi leg ligaments. The ability only...
It's just forced enhanced physical augmentation. Like, by the way the Force is explained throughout the Star Wars canon, it is a part of every living being, but a few people are talented enough to manipulate it. If the Force exists within you, why wouldn't you be able to manipulate it? Why wouldn't you be able to, if you were one of those unique individuals who could manipulate the Force, why wouldn't you be able to manipulate it to, say, make yourself jump higher, make yourself faster, make yourself stronger? There were very few hard and fast rules, namely, the powers were delineated by sides, the dark and the light. And I know you can have dark side powers and be on the light side in video games, but those don't count. And while you could transcend the physical, while Force spirits could transcend the physical plane, which is where he's going, they couldn't physically interact with things. Now, this changed in later canon, where, like, in the Legacy series, in the Legacy of the Jedi series, he's Kazdan, no, not Kazdan Prez, Exar Kun. Exar Kun comes back as a Force spirit. He's a powerful Sith Lord, he comes back as a Force spirit, and I think a couple of other Sith spirits come back. They can't affect the physical world. Even in Old Republic, the video game, the spirits can't affect the physical world. Not to any great extent. They have to have a physical vessel to do it. And those spirits that can affect the physical world are very, very powerful dark side masters. Which would imply that they're more demonic instead of the sort of I guess neutral or protective spirits of the light.
Only has meaning in the context of Luke's character arc. He wanted to go off on an adventure and join his friends in fighting the Empire.
He wanted to join the Imperial Academy. Idiot. He wanted to go fight for the Empire. And the reason he wanted to do that was because he wanted the fuck off Tatooine. That was it. Like, Luke's primary motivation at the beginning of A New Hope is to get the fuck off Tatooine. That's it. He wants to see the galaxy. He knows the Empire can provide that, so he wants to go, join the Imperial Academy.
I thought Luke said that he hated the Empire in the movie.
No.
Like, he said that to Obi-Wan.
If he did, I don't remember. I do know there's a scene at the very beginning when he's like before he meets R2 and C-3PO. Well, like he wants to go enroll in the Imperial Academy. He wants to get off and his uncle basically tells him, like, no, Luke, I need your help with the harvest. He doesn't really start hating the Empire until he finds their corpses.
He realized that goal and became the leader of the rebellion, and believed that becoming a Jedi would make him an even more powerful warrior.
No.
Wait, did he just say that Luke became the leader of the rebellion?
Yes.
Not even close.
No, he was not a leader of the rebellion. He was certainly a hero, but he was not the leader.
He had a decent rank. I think he was like a commander or something like that. But yeah, he wasn't like on par with Leia.
No. on par with Leia or, the generals. Well, the reason he goes off and trains as a Jedi because Ben tells him to, because he understands that he needs to master these Force abilities. Not because it'll make him a better warrior.
I'm looking for a great warrior.
Force not make one great.
He barely knew anything about the Force and fundamentally misunderstood what being a Jedi was about.
Yeah, because no one told him. The context Luke has for this scene is watching Ben Kenobi fight and what Ben told him about the Force, and what Obi-Wan told him about the Force and his backstory, basically.
It really bugs me that nobody was ever able to successfully recreate that Yoda puppet.
Just a little.
I mean, the one from Last Jedi was okay. The one from Phantom Menace was kind of terrifying to look at.
Mm-hmm. What, Pops? Yeah, exactly. Like, the context Luke has for this scene is very minimal. Well, it's not that Luke is just thinking of, oh, I seek to become a better warrior because that's what Jedi are. Or he has no context for what a Jedi is. So he comes to Yoda basically assuming that this is what he's going to do. This is who Yoda is going to be. Because that's all the context he has.
Adventure. A Jedi craves not these things. Your weapons. You will not need them.
He struggled through a series of failures and was just beginning to make progress when he sensed his friends were in trouble. He arrogantly believed that he was powerful enough to handle the traps set for him and left against Yoda's warnings. And in the ensuing
No, Yoda wants him to stay so he can complete the training. And Luke goes because he says, I'm not going to let my friends die just so I can become better. It's not Luke's arrogance. It is partially arrogance that leads him into this trap, but it is mostly the desire to defend his friends. And him not really understanding, like, how out of his depth he really is. Like, this Luke Skywalker, this one right here, this one right here. See him? He's right here. This Luke Skywalker could not beat in lightsaber combat a youngling of the Jedi Order. I don't think that's a bold claim to make. Like, he's so inexperienced in the Force. He's extremely inexperienced in lightsaber combat that he has no idea what he's doing. Like, I don't think he understands just how out of his depth he really is. Is when he goes here. He just wants to save his friends.
Fight, we see that Luke is powerful, performing superhuman feats of strength. Even Vader is impressed with his abilities.
Most impressive.
But as the fight goes on, Luke realizes that he's completely outmatched. The Force is much bigger than he knew, and his abilities amounted to nothing. This moment was just a stepping stone on the way to this moment. And they could have demonstrated Luke's power any number of ways. Jumping seems like it was just an arbitrary match for the layout of the freezing chamber. If the room had been different, maybe Luke could have used super speed instead. The literal form the Force took didn't matter. It was always working in the service of the story and the characters. But after years of worshipping these
bad writing.
The what?
And this somehow excuses bad writing.
Yeah, exactly.
Movies, fans demand that it work the other way around. The Force is super important, and your story and characters had better work in the service of it. And that means locking everything to only what was seen in the originals with no more room for imagination or growth.
That's not how the Force works.
It doesn't sound like good writing advice to tell people that they could just keep pulling shit out of their ass if it serves the plot.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point.
The 900-year-old puppet can come back as a blue ghost, but shooting a lightning bolt is blasphemy.
Yes, it is blasphemy.
Yes, just a little. You know why? Should we explain why?
Ghost Obi-Wan could have shown up and beat Vader up.
Bingo. If we are, for the sake of, if we are to remove all of the extended universe and just focus on the movies in terms of Force abilities, then the spirits are never shown to interact with the physical world. None of them. And if this is the case, why then, and if this is the case, why then do the spirits not do anything about the Emperor? Or Vader, for that matter? Like, if Yoda is powerful enough to call down lightning, why can't Yoda just appear on Vader's ship, or Vader or Palpatine's, like, ships, and use the power of the Force to crush the ship and kill them and save the rest of save the galaxy? Ow, ow, ow. Cat. Sorry. The Yoda puppet calling down lightning is a problem. Like, it breaks the rules, because the spirits, as far as we were aware, had no way of influencing the physical world.
When Obi-Wan said,
"If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine."
I'd like to think he meant he could do a little more than just hang around and shoot the shit.
Well, that's good for you. Oh. But if Obi-Wan can interact with the physical world, i.e., if Obi-Wan can, say, can call lightning or engage in a fight, then why doesn't Obi-Wan appear as a Force spirit in front of Darth Vader and strike him down?
Yeah, I kind of thought when Obi-Wan says, "I'll become more powerful," I assume he more means that he will, when he dies, he'll become one with the Force.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be one with the Force, and I'll retain my individuality. Thus, I'll basically have achieved enlightenment. Pull that shit from the Journey to the West. Hey, Monkey King, jump out of my hand. Monkey King proceeds to jump out of Buddha's hand. And it turns out Buddha's hand is the universe.
Is that an actual quote from the book?
No, but basically in the Journey to the West, the gods get pissed at the Monkey King, and they call in the Buddha, and the Buddha's like, "Look, if you can jump out of the palm of my hand, and you can be supreme god of all heaven. You can be the ruler of all the heavens." And Monkey proceeds to jump basically to the edge of the universe and come back. And the Buddha's like, "Yeah, you never jumped out of my hand. See, being enlightened and all, well, the entire universe is in the palm of my hand." But anyway.
Wait, worse than you. Which book do you mean? Journey to the West? You mean Journey to the West?
Yeah. Yeah, that's where I got that. They need to upload another episode. I'm actually like super eager to see what the next one is.
It was clear that he was holding back his full potential.
If you choose to face Vader, you will do it alone. I cannot interfere.
Boom, right there. That line, that one line says, I can't help you. I'm a ghost. I can't help you. Why would you hurt your argument this way?
So why is a lightning bolt out of the question?
Because you just had the line.
Not allowed to.
Because you just had the line where, oh, I can't interfere.
Just because we haven't seen it before?
No, because it's weird. Because it means that if a force spirit can appear, like a force spirit can interact with the physical world, can literally call down the forces of heaven to smite the enemy, to smite a tree. Why can't they? Why didn't they interact with Vader or Palpatine? Why didn't they assist Luke in his battles with Vader and Palpatine? Hell, why didn't Obi-Wan appear before Vader and be like, I forgive you, you're cool, there's still good in you? Like, the rules of Force Spirits weren't set in stone, mind you, but the implications were very clear that they couldn't interact with much of the physical world, well, beyond simply observing and guiding those that followed the light. And it's never actually made clear as to whether or not anyone else can see them too.
People hated Leia pulling herself through zero gravity, which isn't even a new ability, just an old one in a new context. And yes, you can survive in space for a minute or two, I googled it.
Okay, sure. You can survive in space. Okay, congratulations. You can survive in space. But this is after she survives an explosion. Miraculously unharmed, by the way. And then she just Mary Poppinses her way back into the airlock? What? I'm sorry, that's a little bit hard to believe. After, the concussive force of an explosion and then the lack of oxygen and at least a minute of exposure to hard vacuum after said concussive force of explosion. And then you have to concentrate and pull yourself back into a by the way, non-pressurized section of the ship. So how is it that she is not dooming everybody else on the ship to be sucked into space? Like, it's such a nonsensical scene.
It's an awful time to suddenly start caring about realism, isn't it? Luke's project.
No, it's not. We've never seen anything like that in the entirety of the Star Wars movie canon. Not once. There is no implication this is the Jimmy Neutron, the Jimmy Neutron space where hard vacuum doesn't exist.
Section is right in line with how the Force was used in the originals.
What do you mean, how the Force was used in the originals? You mean Force Ghosts? Force Ghosts don't have a physical body. What the fuck is this? What?
His greatest achievement wasn't blowing up the Death Star. It was resisting the dark side and refusing to fight.
Yes, correct. Caesar, you still here, or are you just letting me go?
Yeah, I'm still here. I like listening to you ramble.
Apparently, so do 72 other people. So you know. Regardless, yes, correct. Luke's big moment is in Return of the Jedi is resisting the dark side. His big moment in A New Hope is trusting the Force to guide him to blowing up the Death Star. The Death Star. Like that's his moment. His moment in The Empire Strikes Back is when he calls out through the Force to Leia. And we're not even sure how that one works.
That was the moment when he became a Jedi.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
His scene on Crate is that same idea on a larger scale.
What? How? Well, his scene on Crate is I didn't have the balls to show up myself.
With Luke using everything he learned about the Force to resolve the situation peacefully. The people saying he genuinely should have been there, taking down AT-AT walkers like a badass, are missing the point. Maybe what those people wanted to see was this. Destructive power is a Sith thing.
Ironically we got.
We always heard the Jedi prizing nonviolence.
Yeah, I know, right?
We got this with the Mandalorian.
And it was fucking awesome.
A Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense, never for attack.
But they were basically soldiers and assassins in the prequels.
Send me to kill the Emperor.
They were defending the Republic. Also, yes, that Yoda should not have sent. They were not assassins, and it was, and he.
I don't really think you understand what an assassin is.
Yeah, part of me is like, no, he's wrong, but part of me is like, yes, he's correct. But one of the reasons he's correct is because the Jedi were arrogant and complacent.
So it's been a little while since I watched Revenge of the Sith in its entirety, but so when Obi-Wan says send me to kill the Emperor, he just simply means that he's just simply going to go and he's going to actually to fight the Emperor to the death.
Basically yes.
You know, stop him from taking over the galaxy. Not like Obi-Wan is a hitman being paid to kill him.
Yeah, exactly.
Luke using
and yet Obi-Wan doesn't attack. You know, Grievous is like, attack Kenobi. And Obi-Wan's like, yeah, no. Oh, Ewan McGregor, that is not a good placement for your head.
Knowledge instead of violence to win the fight is the most Jedi thing in the series, but it ignited a controversy because it's not in the rulebook.
Yes, correct. It's not in the rulebook. We have rulebooks.
Rian Johnson made the mistake of posting an excerpt that referenced the ability, and haters immediately
What book is that from?
Probably the Jedi Path.
Now I gotta look it up.
descended on him because it wasn't canon. You fucking moron. I hate to break it to anyone.
No, Rian Johnson is a moron for many things, but using a non-canon book to justify his own bullshit is not one of them. He just can't write.
But one fictional book of fake space facts isn't any more or less real than another fictional book of fake space facts. There was never any real definition of canon. Things shifted in and out of it all the time, and the sheer volume of extraneous books and games led to a convoluted coding system to determine canonicity by ranking. The only person whose opinion should matter on this is the creator of the series, and George Lucas didn't care for much of anything other than the films and the Clone Wars.
Good for him. Good for him. He doesn't get to decide. And personally, neither do Disney.
The Emperor doesn't get cloned, Luke doesn't get married, and Jar Jar's the best Star Wars character.
Well,
that's canon. Alright, you son of a bitch. What? Stop! Go to the dark side. Get him off me!
Disney established a committee.
Best character canon. I mean, I get it's a joke, but it's a weird joke considering the argument.
Excuse me. The Walt Disney Company for $4 billion. After the acquisition, Disney and Lucasfilm established the Lucas Story Group, a committee whose job is to keep track of, define, and unify the new canon across all media. Wow.
To ensure that every new storyline is totally canon, and that includes The Last Jedi. So yes, everything in the film is totally canon.
Good for you. The Last Jedi's still garbage. It's regardless of whether the magic mouse said regardless of whether Hair Mouse says it's canon or not. But it still doesn't make any sense given the rules we've established previously. Which were that spirits can't interact with the physical world.
And if you take issue with that, why is this bureaucratic system any less legitimate than what came before?
That's not what anyone is arguing. No one gives a shit about the Star Wars Story Committee. Well, actually, that's not true. I'm sure someone does. But nobody gives a shit. This is irrelevant to what the arguments against The Last Jedi. Wholly irrelevant.
If you need a committee to rubber stamp your fantasy adventure plot points for your consumption, maybe you're the one who doesn't understand what the Force is about.
Hey, are you talking to the fandom or Hair Mouse?
Think about it. Fans hated the midichlorians because it made the Force into something small and knowable. If you've condensed the...
Yes,
well, depends on which fans you're talking about.
Yeah, it depends on who you're talking to, number one. Number two, the Jedi Path and the Book of the Sith are lore books. They're books of lore, of the history of the Jedi and the Sith, of the origins of their fighting styles, their Force, the origins of their philosophies, of their understanding of the Force. That is their purpose. That is what they are. They are encyclopedias, basically.
The Force into a book that could be sold by Kenner. Haven't you done the same thing? Here's another thing you can't do anymore. Pretend for a second that you're seeing Darth Vader for the very first time. What is he? Is he even human? We find out that he used to be a Jedi before turning evil. Okay, how did he get in the suit?
Oh, I cut his arms and legs off and left him to die in a river of lava. Not mentioning that would have been strange.
What is he? I don't get what he's trying to say.
I don't either. I think he's trying to say, like, if Vader had, but oh, I get it. He's trying to say basically like Vader that meant that not mentioning the fact that Obi-Wan fought Vader on Mustafar and crippled him, turning him into a machine. He would have been weird in the New Hope. Would not have should have been mentioned in the New Hope. But that in the mind of Ben Kenobi, of Obi-Wan, Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader were two different people. Anakin Skywalker died on Mustafar. As far as within the mind of Obi-Wan Kenobi and many of the other Jedi, Anakin Skywalker died on Mustafar. Who walked away from Mustafar was Darth Vader. Also,
really
yes, worse than you is correct.
He didn't walk away. He was carried away on a little hover scooter.
Carried, or you understand what my metaphor.
Yes. Well, I guess it would have actually been when he turned on Windu when he died. When Obi-Wan and Yoda are watching the recording, Obi-Wan tells or Yoda tells Obi-Wan that Anakin's been consumed by Darth Vader.
Yeah, but I don't think Obi-Wan is willing to let that happen until Mustafar.
Yeah,
like from Obi-Wan's unique perspective on Anakin, like his own feelings. I think Obi-Wan didn't really see Darth Vader Anakin Skywalker was dead till Mustafar.
We find out in the next film that he's Luke's father, which tells us more about Luke than it does about Vader.
Are you arguing backstory right now? I feel like you're arguing backstory right now.
We already knew that he was a good Jedi at one point. He's still such a mystery at the end of the trilogy that just seeing his face felt like a giant revelation.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, there's a reason for that. And it's because Vader's face was hidden forever.
We didn't really need details on Vader for the story that was being told, and the mystery of what happened to him was a major component of his character. It inspired people to continue wondering about him long after the films were over. When the prequels explicitly showed how he turned, a lot of people were disappointed that it didn't live up to their imaginations. And that's a lesson that Star Wars fans can't seem to learn, because after decades of getting books, comics, video games, and I assume Pez dispensers with plot points etched into the Pez, it's taken for granted that we'll get to know every last detail. It's great that fans love.
No. No. You can't make this argument about The Last Jedi. I'm sorry, it doesn't work this way. The context, just because people were upset with how the prequels went, does not mean that they're not upset. Does not mean that their arguments about about Snoke and The Last Jedi do not hold any sort of water. Or just because they were disappointed with how Darth Vader turned. Earned. I'm going. Oh my god, we dropped again. I don't want to keep talking. Are we back? Does anyone know? Hello?
Yes. Yeah, I think we're back.
Okay. I don't know what the deal is with OBS, but it's been really crappy lately. It might, I can't tell if it's my Wi-Fi. Okay, I can't tell if it's my Wi-Fi or OBS. But either one of them has been just awful. The Force Awakens and subsequently, The Last Jedi take place 30 years after the events of Return of the Jedi. What happens in those intervening 30 years is important. Why? Why is it important? Because it explains why Luke, Han, and Leia weren't at the forefront of and their allies weren't at the forefront of creating a strong republic. What allowed Snoke to be in this position? Where did he come from? And why didn't Luke do something about him? Why weren't Han and Leia or the Republic doing something about the First Order? Like, all of this needs context. Because without it, it's just a 30-year gap of, I guess our heroes are incompetent? Like, you either have to destroy the legacy and make utterly meaningless. You either have to assume that the legacy, Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Leia Organa had never actually did anything of significance. It was just like a 30-year armistice, essentially. Meaning their sacrifices, what they did, putting their lives on the line, those things, all that character development is utterly worthless. Or you could explain how Snoke came to power through deception and malice, or that he was just on some other planet before he go over some empire thing, and be perfectly fine, even because suddenly, oh, that's why they didn't do anything about him. They didn't know. But the way the movie treats him, it's like everybody knew about Snoke. Everybody knew about Snoke. We all knew who he was. We all knew what he was doing, what he was planning. And this movie provides that very thing. And within its own shitty writing, crushes it. Crushes the legacy of Luke, Han, and Leia.
Yeah, so sorry. So yeah, pretty much like the reason why you need to know about Snoke is because this is a sequel to the original trilogy. If the sequel trilogy was the one and only trilogy, then yeah, you could get away with just completely just bullshitting Snoke. But because this is a follow up, you need to kind of you the audience are naturally going to want to know like what the fuck happened in between the two trilogies to get us to where we are now.
Love this universe so much, but the fixation on literal detail suffocates the larger mythology that Star Wars is a vehicle for. For example, when Snoke appeared in The Force Awakens without a backstory, fans rioted and caused $15 million in damages at the premiere. What about the Emperor?
I have no idea if that's true.
Sounds like a joke.
He's even more powerful than Vader. He looks like he's 1,000 years old. He wiped out the Jedi and turned a democracy into a fascist empire. There's obviously a story to tell there, and yet we learn nothing about where he came from in the film.
Okay, but we don't need to.
We didn't need to know because that was the original trilogy. As far as you know, that was Star Wars at the time.
Yeah, and furthermore, it didn't matter. The Emperor had been given enough scenes and enough ominous basically like the Emperor had enough presence. The Emperor and the Empire had enough presence within all three films, to basically be a force unto themselves. We didn't need to know where they came from because he's the bad guy. And obviously because he is the evil one we are fighting against. How he came to power is irrelevant, because he very clearly removed anyone who could oppose him prior, when he came to power. Meanwhile, Snoke comes to power in a 30-year gap after the Empire is defeated. After we over... So... Like, Snoke exists in a world 30 years after the fall of the Empire. Sorry, my cat has zoomies. Like, 30 years after the fall of the Empire. Like, we need to know how we got from point A to point B.
The Emperor is important within the Star Wars universe, but to us as an audience, his main importance is that he's the wedge between Luke and Vader. Luke is the angel on Vader's shoulder, Palpatine is the devil. To have him regale us with the details of how he came to power would just be a distraction from the scene that we were there to see. Snoke has even less of a need for a backstory since he's an offshoot of that character.
No, it's the opposite. He needs to have more backstory, because for the aforementioned reason that I stated.
A wannabe emperor trying to assume the same role. We've seen enough people get disfigured in their pursuit of power that JJ must have figured we were smart enough to figure this out without having to see it again. Like the Emperor, Snoke is...
You assume that JJ is actually smart.
Worse, you assume that JJ, like, okay, so is that part of Snoke's backstory? How did he get disfigured?
For all we know, he just looks like that because JJ thought he looks cool.
Yeah, exactly. This is the problem. We've seen enough people get disfigured in their pursuit of power to conclude that he was possibly disfigured in his pursuit of during his rise. But when?
Also another thing. This is something that YMS brought up in his Lion King Kimba the White Lion video. That villains having having scarred faces is an extremely common trope. Like, it doesn't really Snoke being scarred doesn't really have to signify anything at all. It could just be there to make him look evil.
Like, look, just because Snoke looks like melted earwax does not mean that he's in any way he must have gotten in a fight during his rise to power. When was this? Why did Luke, Leia, and Han do nothing about it? Why wasn't the Republic informed? Who is this man? How did he rise? How did he achieve this power? We need that context because we have our heroes of the galaxy. In the original trilogy, we don't have any heroes prior to the ones we get. We don't have any opposition to the Empire besides the rebellion, which we only learn about like halfway through through A New Hope. Actually, no, we learn about that. We learn about the rebellion before then, but regardless, Rebellion, the dynamic is set early on in A New Hope. Rebellion good, Empire bad. Done. Done. We don't need any more context for that because the dynamic is set. We don't have any heroes we don't have any heroes bravely standing before the Empire and fighting them off. I mean, we do, but we don't know that yet. Which is explained like, oh, they're not just, the one hero. There's not just Luke, Han, and Leia fighting the Empire. There's an entire Rebel alliance. But 30 years from that point, we know who the players are in the galaxy. We know Luke, Han, and Leia are forming a new republic. So what did they do about this guy? Did they not know? Oh, did they not know? Did they not care? These are questions because we know what we know about the world. And we need to know what happened from point A to point B. And I'm just repeating myself at this point.
Is only important to us as an extension of another character, Kylo Ren. Kylo's story seems to be one of the Force balancing itself.
Disregard to anything this man says about Kylo Ren because it's all stupid and wrong. Because Kylo Ren has no character arc.
The Jedi didn't really understand how it worked and thought that balance meant killing all the bad guys.
Is he not to destroy the Sith and bring balance to the Force?
So the prophecy says.
A prophecy that misread could have been.
But a lot of quotes from Lucas imply it to be more of a literal balance, requiring both sides to some extent. This movie makes that clearer than ever. The ancient Jedi even kept some sort of dark side crystal beneath their island for that purpose.
Which Rey swims to, by the way.
I
the
mean,
girl raised in a desert swims.
Oh, I never even thought about that, but yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you rewind it by 10 seconds? I wanted to verify what he was saying about the balance.
Like the Emperor, Snoke is only important to us as an extension of another character, Kylo Ren. Kylo's story seems to be one of the Force balancing itself. The Jedi didn't really understand how it worked and thought that balance meant killing all the bad guys.
Is that not what the balance of the Force is?
Yeah, why wouldn't the Jedi look at it that way? I mean, to the Sith, balance of the Force would be the destruction of the Jedi. Neither side is brilliantly scheming to neither side is exactly correct on either front.
Is he not to destroy the Sith and bring balance to the Force?
So the prophecy says.
A prophecy that misread could have been.
But a lot of quotes from Lucas imply it to be.
Okay, pause that. I want to see that. The Force has two sides: the good side, the evil side. They both need to be there. It is not a malevolent or a benevolent thing. Too much light or dark would be the undoing of life as you understand. Okay, George Lucas did not, as far as I know, George Lucas did not actually write the Clone Wars. That'd be Dave. That's like Dave Filoni's doing.
Okay, but further, all of these statements are correct. The too much light, the world, during the Age of the Republic, there was too much light. And so the Jedi, and so the light, it grew faded and dark, grew faded, shrouded by arrogance and complacency. And thus rose the dark. Ark. Ark. Like, there's... This is all correct, but not the... It wouldn't... The Force would not attempt to balance itself through two people. Well, and this is why this is why the dark side has a bit more trouble rising in the later canon in after Luke takes over, basically because he embraces a unique view of the Force. Or the Force finds balance within Luke, found balance within Luke because he rejected the old Jedi code and the dark side. He found a new path.
Be more of a literal balance, requiring both sides to some extent. This movie makes that clearer than ever. The ancient Jedi even kept some sort of dark side crystal beneath their eyelander for that purpose.
Balance. Powerful light, powerful darkness.
The Jedi recruited a massive number of light users, which allowed a super powerful Sith to pull Anakin to the dark side and destroy them. As the last Jedi died out, the Force began to flow through Luke, and he pulled Anakin back to the light, leading to the Sith being destroyed. Or not. I'm leaving Palpatine out of this until we know what the fuck is going on.
It's not pretty, trust me.
Luke began training a new generation of Jedi, and with Snoke apparently being the only counterbalance, Ben was pulled to the dark side to even things out.
What?
He destroyed the Jedi, which led to Luke abandoning the Force, leaving no active Jedi on the light side. This led to Kylo being pulled back to the light.
I feel it again. The pull to the light.
His resistance to this led to the light finding an outlet through Rey.
You mean Mary Sue?
I warned my young apprentice that as he grew stronger, his equal in the light would rise.
That constant back and forth has defined Kylo Ren's character.
I'm being torn apart.
He's like a desperate cultist looking for an escape, and Snoke has convinced him that the answer is going fully to the dark side and becoming the next Darth Vader.
Okay, so I'm trying to remember. Did the movie, was there ever an explanation for what tempted him into the dark side in the first place?
No, it's just Luke saw darkness in him, and Snoke had already won by the time Luke saw the darkness.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, to make him a more compelling character, you need a good reason for why he wanted to join the dark side in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just basically I'm following my own advice. I'm just ignoring everything he's saying about Kylo Ren because Kylo Ren doesn't have a character. He is whatever the plot needs him to be. We need him to kill Han Solo because Harrison Ford wants the fuck out of these movies. He's okay. Let's have him have an emotional moment where you think he's gonna turn good, and then stab Han in the chest. Okay. Again, J.J. Abrams is a hack writer. I'd say that to J.J. Abrams' face. Like, next time, if I ever go to San Diego Comic-Con, go to J.J. Abrams' panel, be like, step into that question line, be like, you're a hack. I want you to know that. And then repeat the famous Rick and Morty line, your boos mean nothing, I've seen what makes you cheer.
Kylo does everything Snoke tells him and it doesn't work. He becomes even more conflicted and less powerful.
Bested by a girl who had never held a lightsaber, you failed! I've done everything I have to.
After some reflection, he realizes that he's being used. He has the chance to kill his mother and doesn't take it. When Rey calls him a monster, he agrees.
Yes, I am.
He needs to free himself from Snoke in order for his character to move forward, and he needs Rey's help to do it.
Because every time you get two Sith together, the apprentice is
but,
always trying to...
But why does he have to stay evil afterwards?
Yeah.
If he realizes the guy who tempted him to the dark side in the first place is just using him, naturally he'd probably want to be good again.
recruit another apprentice to join with him to kill the master.
A lot of people interpreted
But they're
this as a
not Sith.
subversion of their
As far as we know, Snoke and the Knights of Ren are not Sith.
Yeah. And then there's this scene.
Which that could have been something really interesting to explore. Other dark Jedi factions besides the Sith.
Yeah, you know. But we didn't get that. We got Mary Sue and poor Adam Driver. I don't understand why people find him attractive. I really don't.
expectations, which has become a meme now. But if you're paying attention to the character, it's not a subversion.
What character? He's so horrifyingly inconsistent.
I mean, maybe they're not attracted to his looks. Maybe it's just like Kylo being the tortured bad boy.
Maybe.
It's a trope that a lot of nerdy girls seem to eat up.
Anyway, moving on. I'm taking my own advice. I'm just ignoring this part of the video, basically.
This should be the expectation. He's not turning good. He's doing exactly what his character needs to, and he's offering Rey the chance to come along, just as Vader did to Luke. And fans also hated this because they didn't get their fucking Wikipedia page filled out. You can't kill him yet!
Oh god! The fucking straw man.
Yeah.
And I don't even need to respond to this because I've already explained, we both explained why we needed to know more about Snoke.
Yeah.
Need him!
The film is already overlong and packed with plot.
Plot. You know, that's what. How long is the what's its face scene? The rich people scene. How long is that scene?
Oh, Canto Bight?
Yes. How long is Canto Bight?
If I had to guess, I'd say maybe 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
At least.
15 minutes
That's
on a plot thread that goes nowhere. Yeah, packed with plot. This film is. Yeah, all of it. It's not just packed with filler content and with just enough action set pieces and pretty things and pretty jingling keys to keep you and your ilk distracted from the shitty writing.
How would this have helped?
I will kill you with the crudest stroke. But first, let me tell you about the summers I spent on Nylar 7. Growing up, I always had a fascination with antique clocks. The ticking, the talking.
That poor straw man. Flying monkeys are just piling up on him.
Cynthia was the first to break my heart. I tore hers out of her body! You've never had Roba Pie until you've had Keldabe
And let me get... And if Nero were to watch this video response, she'd probably respond with, "Oh, it's just a joke. Don't take it too seriously. Ha ha ha."
Also, what the fuck is this weapon? This scene, when I saw it for the first time, I thought was really, really cool, but now I know it's awful. What the one thing that always bugged me about this scene is this thing. What the hell is it? This is a sword. What the fuck is this?
Child, we haven't even gotten to my quinceanera yet.
Rey spent the previous film obsessed with finding answers to who she is.
For my family.
She spent this film obsessed with finding out answers to who she is too.
They'll be back.
And doesn't find any when she arrives at Luke's island. The important thing for her character at this point isn't the answer, it's breaking her dependence on it.
It's your greatest weakness. Looking for them everywhere. In Han Solo, now in Skywalker.
In her desperation, she even turns to the dark side.
You went straight to the dark. It offered something you needed. Let me see them. You didn't even try to stop yourself.
She's forced to accept that there isn't an easy answer that will solve everything, and that she has to determine who she is completely by herself.
And yet she doesn't.
Kylo Ren is in a similar position. They've both been failed by the light and dark sides of the Force and had to find a new path forward, and in that way have an unexpected bond. If they can resolve their differences, this could finally lead to real balance in the Force. People like to say that Rian Johnson threw away everything J.J. Abrams set up.
He did.
Where's the lie?
Where is the lie?
Still there?
Yeah. Yeah, where's the lie? The J.J. Abrams threw away. Ryan threw away everything that J.J. had planned. Like, Rey's family, they're junkers. Rey's family, irrelevant, they're junkers. There's Luke and Leia being heroes. Finn's possible whole backstory as a stormtrooper. Poe being an ace pilot. Well, we're just gonna throw all that away. No need. No need for that.
But just because you didn't get the answer you wanted doesn't mean that he didn't use those elements.
What answer did I want? Motherfucker? What answer? The answer I wanted when seeing Rey, he was, how the hell is she this powerful in the Force? Who in her line gave her this ability? And if it wasn't in her line, why is she this powerful?
Instead of going for fan service and making her Obi-Wan's granddaughter, he took the threads from The Force Awakens and used them to challenge the characters as much as possible and tell a far more interesting story.
What interesting story? The one where Mary Sue has Mary Sue character?
And the one challenged most of all was, before even getting...
No, Luke's character was assassinated in this film. Nobody will deny that. Not even you. I will not have it.
Luke's character, Rian Johnson did not decide to make him a broken hermit.
Lies.
Neither did J.J. Abrams. George Lucas did.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, press X to doubt.
No. We don't get to doubt this. This motherfucker just said George Lucas, the man who wrote the character, made Luke a hermit. I've gotta fucking hear this.
His story treatments apparently had Luke hermited away at the original Jedi Temple, with a female student seeking him out and forcing him to overcome his depression. Boy, that sounds an awful lot like The Last Jedi. Lucas even approved concept art for the setting during the transition to Disney. It's often argued that...
Okay. So... JJ kept the first part.
So, I think it's safe to assume there might be a little more to it than that.
Yeah.
Like, if I can buy maybe Luke being... Like, what did he say? Rewind it. What did he say about Lucas again?
Lucas even approved concept, like...
Neither did J.J. Abrams. George Lucas did. His story...
The idea was that after that 30 years after the fall of the Empire, Luke had gone into a dark place and secluded himself in a Jedi temple on a new planet. Over the course of that movie, he would rediscover his vitality and train this new Jedi.
Treatments apparently...
That sounds like... I don't know, maybe Luke fails at something. And, that sounds like, you know, you could have some interesting things happen there that caused this, instead of just Luke deciding that he doesn't want to be a Jedi anymore. Or besides, this gives a, according to this, we've got an entire movie with Luke and this new female Jedi, the acolyte, to flesh out what the hell happened.
They had Luke hermited away at the original Jedi Temple, with a female student seeking him out and forcing him to overcome his depression.
Yeah, still with us, Clayton?
Yeah. Like,
So,
I don't.
But did George Lucas also say that that Luke would also like refuse to help his friends while there's a big war going on that's like annihilating everybody?
Yeah, exactly. This sounds like the barest minimum. This sounds like theory crafting for a potential plot of of a movie. Not even like anything.
And
Boy, that sounds an awful.
And to top it all off, like George Lucas can just come up with shitty ideas that just contradict what's come before. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of creators do that. Case in point, Ridley Scott with the Alien franchise.
A lot like The Last Jedi. Lucas even approved concept art for the setting during the transition to Disney.
Lucas did a lot during the transition for Disney. That doesn't mean anything.
It's often argued that Luke never should have ended up in this position because he was always hopeful and upbeat. But
yes, correct. So, which again brings us to that whole 30-year gap thing that we need to address. It's not that, oh, this is this beloved character is acting different than what his character is acting different than where we left him off, where we left him, and in the last movie, and I don't like that. It's, wow, Luke is very much different from his characterization in the original trilogy. Are we gonna get an explanation of what happened, of why he did this? And Rian Johnson just saddled up to you and was like, yeah, he saw darkness and tried to kill his only nephew.
But that's only one side of his character.
Just isn't fair. Oh, Biggs is right. I'm never gonna get out of here.
Luke wanted to leave Tatooine, and he's a whiny teenager. He's what? I think 18, 19? At the time of A New Hope?
Yeah, 19, I think.
Yeah. So, you're pointing to a 19-year-old Luke as a solid, fully developed character. You know, it's not like in the, 5 years I think it takes place over, or Luke grows and matures. Or is his
I'm gonna be right back.
All right.
I'll be right back. You keep going.
Yeah. His characterization in A New Hope versus Return of the Jedi, it is so vastly different, but it keeps his core the same. But it keeps his core relatively the same. He's very optimistic. He's very hopeful. He doesn't give up on people. Well, you know, things of that nature.
There's a bright center to the universe. You're on the planet that it's farthest from.
Where are you going?
Looks like I'm going nowhere.
Can't believe he's gone. Oh, two, what are we doing here? No, I don't even know what I'm doing here. We're wasting our time.
Good boy.
You know, this scene that's Luke experiencing frustration. You know, that human emotion that comes when you feel like you feel like you're being blocked at every turn for no reason. Luke has basically been told to come to this random system. He can't get off, and this random crazy puppet dude is basically teasing him, is basically jerking him around. Is basically jerking him around because, he doesn't trust him.
He has no patience.
Yeah. Yeah. That's called a character flaw. Oh, that's not.
We'll never get it out now.
Always with you, it cannot be done.
I can't. You want the impossible.
I can't do it, R2. You can't go on alone. I'm endangering the mission. I shouldn't have come.
I have no memory of my mother. I never knew her.
Then my father is truly dead.
Soon I'll be dead. And you with me.
He was certain that Vader was still a good guy.
There is still good in him. There is good in him. I felt it.
And nearly killed him in a fit of hateful rage. Luke isn't always who we want him to be, and that's why he works as a protagonist.
Yeah, he's a flawed character, but that doesn't justify this. That does not justify his characterization in The Last Jedi. He's had 30 years to grow and work on himself, to become a better person. And the explanation we get in The Last Jedi is Luke is so afraid of the dark side, of his family turning evil, that he's going to kill his own nephew in his sleep. I'm sorry, but Luke Skywalker, at no point, even in his earliest, whiniest version, would ever kill his own family in their sleep.
Some fans wanted his challenges to be over. They wanted, if you can believe it, fan service. To see the characters exactly as we saw them before, doing what we saw before, just...
Yes, that's generally how torch passing works. We see the characters in a new light. We see them coming together and bringing along people. We see them as the old cast and the new cast. And thus, as the old cast, as the new cast learns from the old cast, the torch is passed. The torch gets passed along. Generally, that's how that works. These are the heroes of the galaxy. They saved the galaxy, and so it makes sense for them to come together, or to face down the First Order, and guide a new generation with their wisdom. That's generally how torch passing as a story beat works.
Just, older. That didn't exactly work out for Indiana Jones.
Reunions are inherent.
The goal... Yeah, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull had the same problem. Had other problems.
Inherently disappointing, aren't they? I mean, your old TV show, they go, oh boy, they're coming back after 20 years. And then you see, I'm not sure.
And it goes against the mythology the series is based on.
And what all the myths have to deal with is transformation of consciousness. That you're thinking in this way, and you have now to think in that way.
If you look at the beginning of the hero's journey, like with King Arthur, he pulls the sword from the stone, he's ascendant, and if it then goes past that and deals with the hero's life as they get into middle age and beyond, it gets into darker places.
It gets dark, man.
There's a reason for that. It's because myths are not made to sell action figures.
Ryan Johnson.
Okay.
Is a
what's the argument he's what's the argument he's trying to make right now?
He's trying to make the argument that Luke's character was perfectly in line with his characterization in earlier, and he's basically saying
Okay, so
it
nothing
goes
changed.
that Luke and Leia and Han being sort of at the forefront of the film of the trilogy and passing the torch, that would have been against would have worked against the old mythology, the mythology that the characters were based on of the story. And then Ryan Johnson's sitting here like, oh well, if you look at the mythology, hold on, let me go back.
Darker places.
It gets dark, man.
And if it then goes.
And you have now to think in that way.
And if you look at the beginning of the hero's journey, like with King Arthur, he pulls the sword from the stone, he's ascendant, and if it then goes past that and deals with the hero's life as they get into middle age and beyond, it gets into darker places.
It gets dark, man.
There's a reason for that.
I would not use the legend of King Arthur for my example of the hero's journey past his ascendancy, and there's a reason for that. Namely because King Arthur, the mythos behind King Arthur is very much, while canonized, very much something that is written by multiple authors with multiple interpretations of who Arthur was as a character. Like originally there was the British authors who basically wrote Arthur as the one true king of the one true king of Britain, Camelot, and everything. Then there were the French authors who came in and were like, well, courtly love. And so the idea of affairs and things like that, and purity and knighthood, like there's a lot of factors that go into writing an Arthurian story that I would not point in the directions of Star Wars and say that's Arthurian. Besides, the hero's journey cycles back to more Greek and Roman mythology than it does Arthurian legend. And the reason I say that is because Arthurian legend was basically do what?
I don't know. Keep going.
Arthurian legend was, as far as I understand it, written as sort of a sign of the times kind of thing. Like it was what was going on during the time period they were written. They're very much a reflection of culture and how people viewed chivalry and knighthood and things like that during the time. And that shifts over the course of the legend.
Okay, so what I was going to ask was, so does the hero's journey apply? Would that even apply to a story where the protagonist dies at the end? Arthur dies.
No, and the reason being that generally speaking, the hero's journey ends with a resolution, with some form of resolution. Like technically, yes, the Arthur dying at the end of his own mythos is part of I guess part of the hero's journey, but it would be the ending basically. So basically, like, the hero's journey works as a cycle, a call to adventure or supernatural aid, a transformation, challenges and temptations, a revelation, another transformation, atonement, return, and then another call to adventure. An endless cycle of basically a rise and fall. So Arthur essentially works as he pulls the sword from the stone, and that's his call to adventure, I guess. But then it sort of takes a detour as it focuses on other knights, on other quests, on different things, because Arthurian legend isn't all about Arthur. It's about Camelot as a whole. Arthur just happens to be a central figure at the time. Figure for it. But no, I would not point to... I mean, I guess you could say it would be part of the hero's journey for your character to die at the end, but that doesn't really fit. Also, I would not point to Star Wars and say, look, Arthurian.
Because myths are not made to sell action figures.
I would very much disagree. And do you know why? Because, and this is the fundamental misunderstanding of why people don't get like myths as a thing. Like, myths as we know them today aren't myths. They're like the stories from the Bible. We don't call them myths, we call them stories from the Bible. And the reason we call them stories from the Bible is because Christianity is a practiced religion of the day. We call the myths of the Romans and the Greeks and the Babylonians myths because we don't have any engagement with those stories. Myths, as we know them today, were the stories of the practiced religion of the time period which they came from. Like, so when Rian Johnson says myths aren't designed to sell action figures, he's very wrong, because a myth today can sell an action figure because it is part of our culture.
Myths are made to reflect the most difficult transitions we go through in life.
Yeah.
¿Por qué no los dos? Fuckwit.
Maybe the biggest strength of the serial format is seeing how history unfolds and how the characters evolve into different roles over time. It's not disrespectful to a character to deny them a happy ending. It's disrespectful to parade them around for nostalgia's sake without moving them forward. Part of the reason the characters never had that happy reunion is that Harrison Ford didn't want to be an empty cameo.
Harrison has always said that he knew that Han needed to have clear utility. In this case, there was such clear utility.
Han's death in The Force Awakens was totally in the service of that film's plot.
I would disagree with that, but, you know.
It wasn't about Han, it was about the new characters.
Yes! I mentioned this earlier with the whole... Well, yes, we wanted to see the old characters unite and fight evil and do what they did, but at the same time pass the torch on to the new ones. You know, that how generally speaking, how torch passing works.
30 years ago, no one would have predicted that his story would end this way, because these elements weren't even on the table back then.
You said poisonous gas.
I fixed that.
Can you unfix it?
Even when Han was introduced in The Force Awakens, you would never have seen it coming.
Yeah. You know. Yeah, he does. I don't know how he dies, though. Any idea, Caesar?
Any ideas about what?
How does Han die in the EU? I know he does
I
die.
don't. He does. Well,
I think so.
well, let's find out. Wikipedia.
To the Google machine. Alright. I think we got about 10 more minutes before I'm going to pass out at my desk. But really, at this point, I think everybody's gotten an idea of what this guy's saying.
As far as I can tell, Han's still alive in the EU. Well, I mean, he eventually dies by the time, or by the time you get to the guy. What's the dude's name? Cade Skywalker from like Legacy. I mean, he'd be dead by then because that's like centuries. Sure.
Yeah.
So as far as I can tell, they haven't so I guess so. Yes and no, he's dead, but there's not an explanation as to what killed him.
He may have just died of old age.
Yep.
Luke, on the other hand, has an ending that not only serves this story, but his character as a whole.
Yeah, because these two characters should be hugging. Right now, they should be interacting this way, you know. Oh, not Luke and Leia grieving, you know, the love of her life, the father of her child, old versus the girl that knew him for all of what, a day. Nearly died in combat together more than once. You know, they fought for their lives, saved him from Jabba's palace.
Whole. After beginning a new Jedi temple, he began to lose Ben to the dark side. Based on what Leia says,
There's too much Vader in him.
That's why I wanted him to train with Luke.
Luke must have known the danger from the beginning and would have been trying everything he could to prevent it up until that point.
And it was beyond what I ever imagined.
With all else failed, Luke is faced with the choice of killing him to prevent history from repeating, and this is where I think the film lost people forever.
Yeah, because it implies that Luke would actually kill his own flesh and blood. Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, and I've seen like TLJ defenders try to argue that Luke thought about it, but he didn't do it. He hesitated, and that's so that it makes it okay for him to still have ignited it in the first.
No, I'm sorry, Luke Skywalker, even at his most, like, uncharitable interpretation, which I'm happy to do, I don't really like Luke Skywalker, would not do this. This is the actions of someone who is not Luke Skywalker, who is not a Jedi, who has not seen the temptations of the dark side and resisted them. Like, I'm sorry, this is not an action Luke Skywalker as a character would take.
People say this scene destroys Luke's character because he was always trying to save his friends, but that's exactly what this moment is.
He tried to save his father. His father, who by the time he knows he's his father and attempts to save him, has personally mutilated him. And Luke Skywalker said, "You know what? I'm going to be the bigger man, and I'm going to forgive you, because I see the good in you. I see hope. I hope I will pull you from this darkness."
Is about.
He would bring destruction and pain and death and the end of everything I love because of what he will become.
Had he gone through with it, he could have saved his Jedi and everyone else Kylo Ren killed. But Luke didn't go through with it, because it's not in his character.
But he still ignited the damn thing in the first place.
The thought even crossed his mind. He didn't counsel. He didn't seek more counsel. He didn't call in his mother and father to be like, "Look, I've seen the dark side growing within you. Like, it's not going to be fun."
And I was left with shame.
Once again, he falters before ultimately doing the right thing. Losing his students finally awakens him to the truth, that the Jedi were failures.
If you strip away the myth and look at their deeds, the
How?
legacy of the Jedi
How?
is failure.
How did it?
At the height of their powers, they allowed Darth Sidious to rise, create the Empire, and wipe them out.
No, they did not. The Jedi grew arrogant and complacent, and so could not see the dangers that Darth Sidious was posing.
And despite the flaws of the Jedi, their overall goal was to protect the galaxy. So
Exactly.
Despite, I mean, they still kind of have they're still kind of important.
Luke believed wholeheartedly in
and
an.
I know I don't think we should try to. I don't know if it's fair to compare this to the EU. So I guess that could be a bit of a whataboutism, but fuck it. I mean, in the EU, Luke knows that the old Jedi Order was flawed. That's why he reformed it. He allowed Jedi to feel love. He didn't take in children. Took in like older apprentices. So the point I'm trying to say is that like the Jedi, he can acknowledge that the Jedi. If he can acknowledge that the Jedi are flawed, then why not just try to reform the Order to get rid of all the things that caused a Jedi to fall in the first place, instead of just repeating the same shit.
An idealized version of them based on a few mere sentences from Obi-Wan and Yoda. He assumed that restoring their order would make things right again. Joseph Campbell wrote that the hero's conflict can't be solved by a return to the good old days, that the rebirth of the old thing will only serve to perpetuate the cycle. Luke and Leia both tried to resurrect the old thing and it went badly right away this time.
But the old thing was actually good, though.
Yeah.
In context, it was actually good.
Within the context of Star Wars, the Republic, the Republic and the Jedi Order were good. They were good for the galaxy, and they were good for the people. Well, of the galaxy.
Luke has failed before, but this time it's not just him paying the price. The entire galaxy is suffering the result of his actions. He comes.
So this man is basically arguing that Luke should have killed his own nephew. Do we need to even go further? This is how far this man is going to go to defend this shitty movie. And to call you a terrible person for it.
I mean, I guess we ought to keep going since he also did one on Rise of Skywalker.
Comes to see that maybe getting all these light side users together invites the dark side to destroy them. That the Jedi Order was...
So we're just gonna let the dark side reign? Like, that's what you're... Like, this is... The end result of your argument is that Luke kills his own flesh and blood. Basically has to go tell Han and Leia, like, oh, your son turned to the dark side and I slaughtered him in his sleep. To prevent death. You know, makes sense. And like that's what you're arguing, you idiot. You're saying that Luke was justified in murdering a child. You know, that thing that Anakin did because did when he turned to the dark side.
It's a fatally flawed idea. Letting it die out will cause the Force to find a new way that may succeed where the Jedi failed.
To say that if the Jedi die, the light dies is vanity. Can you feel that?
Luke knows his allies won't accept his decision, which is why he leaves them. He's not giving up on them. He's helping them the only way he thinks he can. It's a callback to
them.
Yeah.
No, Luke fucking gave up.
Yeah. You can't justify these actions by like this. You're saying Luke should have just killed Kylo just to save everybody the trouble. And since he didn't, he decided to abandon everybody he loved. Just abandon the galaxy, abandon everybody he loved to a unknowable fate, to their death, essentially, because he ends up getting Han killed. Leia ends up dying. Like he leaves the galaxy to its death because the Jedi are failure. Or because the light because the Jedi are flawed.
His failure in Empire Strikes Back, showing that Luke now has the maturity to do the difficult thing and not act on impulse.
No.
The new trilogy seems to be heading towards the idea that there needs to be a more permanent solution to the conflict, and this is why I don't agree with the people who say that the new films ruined Return of the Jedi's happy ending.
They did!
It did. It undid everything. It undid their accomplishments. I mean, it's not just The Last Jedi. The Force Awakens did this too. It hit the reset button.
Yeah, by necessity the reset button was hit because, we can't have a happy ending.
Yes, we're back to rebellion fighting Empire.
Which doesn't make sense because the Republic exists. But we hit the reset button, so ignore that.
Luke's Jedi Order was always doomed to be undone by the cycle of light and dark repeating again, and that's exactly what Luke is trying to stop. And this is where themes become incredibly important to the story.
Themes! Can we just skip this part, please? If this is the end of the video, I want to skip it. Mostly because I want to go to bed, but,
I mean, maybe we keep going for a few more minutes, and if he just if he says nothing really worth responding to, we can just call it a night.
Alright.
Story. Star Wars has always had a lot of general themes.
It's all about generations, and it's about the issues of fathers and sons and grandfathers.
But The Last Jedi gets far more specific and says more than any other movie in the series.
It says it best when it says nothing at all. That was a good one. Comedy gold and nothing.
The first theme is the idea of destruction versus preservation. Obviously, old ideas can't work forever and have to be abandoned at some point,
Just
but
because
clear
the
burning
movie has
everything...
good themes doesn't mean that the movie is good.
Yeah. I think that can be applied to this whole section. Just because it is an interesting...
The themes complement the story does not complement the theme.
Or hell, the themes are so nebulous that they could fit within any story. Just because your story has good themes does not mean it is a good story.
will result in good things being lost. It's why Kylo Ren is the villain.
The Sith.
But I thought you said he was being pulled back towards the light thanks to Rey. See, even this man's confused about Kylo Ren.
The Jedi. The rebels. Let it all die.
There has to be a balance between old and new, and finding that balance is where the conflict lies. Luke's insistence that the Jedi be lost to history has aligned him with the bad guys in this regard.
I did not expect Skywalker to be so wise.
The decision to preserve or destroy even plays out in a literal sense with Poe's opening attack.
I'm with the droid on this one.
Leia is focused on preserving the fleet and simply wants to escape once the last ship is ready. Poe disregards her orders and deploys bombers to finish his attack on the dreadnought. The attack goes horribly wrong and puts the entire fleet at risk, forcing Rose's sister to sacrifice herself to save the Resistance. Poe believes it's a victory because they blew up the thing, but Leia regards it as a failure because of the people they lost.
Yeah, but Leia's being stupid. Leia is written poorly. In any other circumstance, Leia would have praised him for saying, "Good job, you've saved us all." Because, you know, the thing has a... If the Dreadnought survives the opening scene of the movie is over. That's it. There need not be any more argumentation about that. If the Dreadnought lives beyond the first scene, hell, beyond the first minute, the last few minutes it's on screen, the movie's over because it blasts the Raddus out of space with its giant Death Star cannon. I hate that, by the way.
And over the course of the film, it's clear that Leia is right. The Resistance doesn't even have a fleet for that ship to be a threat to by the end. Those...
Yeah, because of contrived hyperspace bullshit.
People and resources were far more valuable than this empty victory. Leia depends on Poe to take over for her, but he only understands leadership from the perspective of an X-Wing pilot. Like Luke with the Jedi, he's filled with misconceptions about what the role he's growing into is. So Rian Johnson takes away his X-Wing and forces him to learn the hard way. To him, leadership is all about bravado and heroics, but his choices end up necessitating that others heroically sacrifice themselves. And while their actions work, it's a leader's job to prevent things from coming to that.
There were heroes on that mission.
Dead heroes.
He comes to realize that protecting the Resistance is a far greater responsibility than blowing things up.
Yeah, but his decision in this point in the film, he is right. At every point in the film, he's correct. He's correct. When without destroying the Dreadnought, the fleet gets blasted out of space. Without his mutiny, if Holdo's plan doesn't work, Holdo doesn't have a plan, or she won't share the plan, or whatever. For whatever reason, Holdo decides to do the thing with the escape pods, to do the thing with the shuttles. Those have no shielding. They have no shielding and no weapons, and he's like, "That's a stupid plan, and they'll shoot us like fish in a barrel." And so they do. And so they do. And then at this point in the movie, Poe's like, "Oh, well, now I'm going to pull back because we can defend ourselves." Except he shouldn't pull back. Like a final suicide run is exactly what they need. Because otherwise the Resistance ends.
just the whole thing with Holdo. All of it could have made sense, and Poe would have been in the wrong if Holdo could have just told Poe that they had reason to believe there was a spy leak for First Order. That's why she kept quiet.
Exactly. Or
all you had to do that, and Holdo was in the right all along, and Poe was wrong. You don't. So Poe did nothing wrong.
And completes his arc by recognizing that the cannon attack is a futile gesture. The point is stated with absolutely no subtlety when Rose saves Finn from sacrificing himself.
Fuck this scene, fuck all of it, fuck it, no, burn it to the ground.
That's how we're gonna win. Not fighting what we hate. Saving what we love.
But the
Finn was doing nothing wrong. He was destroying the damn cannon, so they wouldn't blast the door open.
But Rose Tico is the spy. She's not fighting what she hates, she's saving what she loves. She loves the First Order. Oh god, it works so much better when recontextualized like that. It makes her actions make so much more sense. Like, if Rose Tico is the spy, it makes perfect sense for her to divert all attention to basically fuck with Holdo's plan. Basically force like Poe to stall for them and cause chaos on the ship. It makes perfect sense for her to pull Finn away to this random nowhere planet for no reason. And then it makes perfect sense that that she would be like that she that she would have sold them out to Phasma and everything. It also makes perfect sense that she would crash into Finn right as he's about to sacrifice himself to essentially save the Resistance. The movie works so much better if Rose Tico is a spy.
I just still can't get over the whole get over her like cheating Finn out of the sacrifice, because that would have been a great way to close his whole character.
Oh yeah, I don't disagree with you, but that was just the thoughts that came to my mind. Rose Tico's character works better if she's a spy. Hey, for the First Order.
The film has earned that corny line by hammering this point in from the very first minute. Blowing up that cannon would have just delayed the inevitable. Their only goal was getting out alive.
They can't breach the doors.
That's why they're blowing up the cannon, so they can get out alive.
Yeah.
Which Finn does thanks to Rose. Like it or not, she was right. Finn's arc shows the importance of heroes and legends. We know from The Force Awakens that he's not a hero, but a guy who did the right thing at the right time against every fiber of his being telling him otherwise. All he wanted to do was disappear. He was never joining the Resistance and only stuck around in the last film to rescue Rey.
I'm just here to get Rey.
Regardless, he becomes a hero overnight. Rose's character demonstrates the important effect his actions have had.
You know, a day ago.
We heard about it. My sister Paige said, Rose, it's a real hero.
She's deflated when finding out that he's actually a deserter. But over the course of the story...
He's not a deserter. He didn't sign up for the Resistance. Since he has no loyalty to this cause. He just doesn't want Rey to die. And then Rose zaps him because she's a cunt.
Finn is pressured to live up to the myth. DJ tests his commitment to playing hero with a muddied view of right and wrong that may appeal to his desire to flee.
It's all a machine, partner. Live free. Don't join.
But he overcomes his uncertainty and recognizes that this is where he belongs. By the end, he is the hero Rose originally thought him to be, and Rose is inspired to grow from a meek technician into a hero herself. This is the value that a hero myth can have, even if it isn't really true. All of the mythology that
Why is Phasma the only stormtrooper that has laser-proof armor? You think that'd be useful for you have that kind of armor that should be some kind of standard, or at least give it to at least more people than her.
So far, he's not really saying anything worth responding to. It's just empty words.
Star Wars is based on is fiction.
So
it exists to...
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna skip forward a little bit, see if he...
of the good he was able to do while in...
The need in front of your nose.
Luke still has an obligation to pass on what he knows and to fulfill the need the universe has of him.
I can't be what she needs me to be.
Fine. I understand a lot of the complaints and even share a few of them. The Canto Bight stuff as interesting as Luke and Rey's story. I thought if I dislike something, I make a genuine effort to understand why it turned out that way. Is there some kind of appeal I'm missing? Am I seeing it from all sides? Practically nothing is completely bad and devoid of value. Consider...
No, it is. It is complete... Nothing in The Last Jedi makes sense.
Considerations like this separate good criticism from bad.
Yeah, Mueller basically admitted he was just ranting in the Unbridled Rage. He has that whole, 3-hour long series of videos where he basically breaks down scene by scene in The Last Jedi.
But how am I to know the good side from the bad?
You will know when you are calm, at peace.
I didn't really like The Last Jedi when leaving the theater. It's like the second and third act of a trilogy wedged together. And with...
Okay, so why did you make this video?
With Disney rushing the films out in just 2 years, it's inevitable that a movie this ambitious will turn out uneven. I don't think anyone finds the Canto Bight stuff as interesting as Luke and Rey's story. I thought the movie...
Wait. So he's saying that it'd be uneven because of how close together this trilogy is?
I guess.
I mean, I think the entire it should have been like Lord of the Rings, where the entire trilogy was filmed all at the same time. All three movies flow together flawlessly because Peter Jackson filmed them all at the same time.
All right, but I think that's enough. I've had enough.
All right.
Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed.
Yeah, if you want to see other responses to this video, check out Mueller and Smudboy. They've both done responses to the whole thing from beginning to end.
Yeah. All right. Good night.
Night.